Hey, what's up, audience? Donald Trump achieved another political success on a scale that I think has confounded his critics. He recently just passed the so called Big Beautiful Bill against the warnings of Elon Musk. Elon Musk is furious over the bill because I think because it ends tax cuts to his company, Tesla. The Big Beautiful Bill says that you're no longer going to get subsidies on electric vehicles. I'm not sure why we should incentivize electric vehicles, but there is a reason I can think of as to why you should. It seems to me like the more people who buy electric vehicles in America, the less we depend on foreign oil from tyrannical countries, from the Middle East. I do believe that it would be good to have all of the cars run on electric in America, not for environmental reasons. I believe that we should not purchase oil from the Middle East at all. It seems like all of the Middle Eastern countries that we purchase oil from are just a bunch of dictatorships. So that's a reason why I believe that Americans should subsidize, electric cars against Trump's wishes. Now, Donald Trump, wants to win the state of Michigan again. The automakers don't want to see subsidies to electric cars because electric cars put the labor unions out of business. Or so the labor unions don't want electric cars. People who are in the UAW, who work for the UAW, are they look at the amount of employees it takes to make an electric car versus a normal combustion car, and they get very nervous. I mean, if all Americans had electric cars, there would be no need for a UAW because they couldn't get enough employees. So I think that when Trump uh, put insists on getting rid of tax subsidies for electric cars, he's trying to help the labor unions because he knows that he depends on people in Michigan and Ohio to vote for him. Remember, with Trump's tariffs, he wants to ignite a renaissance in American manufacturing, despite the fact that a lot of Americans don't want to work in a factory, including myself. Yeah, I would much rather work selling things that are made in factories overseas than work in a factory building things that get sold to Americans for a high price. I love drones, but however, I would not want to work in a drone factory. I own the website Drone Thrust. My other YouTube username is at Drone Thrust. It bothers me that Trump wants, and then the Republicans want to get rid of the DJI drones because I don't see them as a threat. Trump's isolationism irks many people, to say the least. What's one bizarre thing about the Big Beautiful Bill that we haven't heard about on the internet? If you're a professional gambler, you're not going to like it because you could no longer deduct all of your losses against your winnings. If you so let's say you as a professional gambler go to the casino and win $100,000 in the slot machines, and then you place your winnings in the slot machine and you lose 100,000, you now owe 100. You owe the government a tax bill of $1,000. That's problematic for a lot of people. The Big Beautiful Bill really hurts casinos because it eliminates the ability of people to earn a living as a professional gambler. For to me, it seems like most gambling is something that destroys people's life savings. The Republicans hate gambling; they always have. The Texas GOP wants to make sports betting apps illegal. I think that that might actually be a good idea. I know some, not me, but I do know somebody who probably lost a lot of money gambling on sports betting apps. It seems to me like sports betting apps are like bucket shops. They might even be worse than you know the discount brokers in terms of their ability to bankrupt people. But they're very popular. I just wouldn't go to a casino if I don't know what the tax implications of are if I like lose a lot of money and win a lot of money. I mean, it seems like if you go to a casino, you're going to do a lot of transactions, and as you do the transactions, it turns out that your income tax bill balloons. It would be pretty professional gamblers have to take into account new federal taxes on gambling. I think that the big beautiful bill is going to cause a lot of misery in Las Vegas. Trump owns casinos. Um, his fans in Las Vegas are going to be furious. There's lots of professional gamblers in Las Vegas that do thousands of transactions per day at poker tables, and their tax bill is going to increase because they won't make money on their losses anymore. And they might not even be able to make money on their winnings. I mean to say, you could have a gambler in Las Vegas could make $100,000 profit yet still lose because you can't deduct your winnings against your losses. The one criticism Elon Musk has about the big beautiful bill that I second is that it might increase the deficit by 3 trillion over the next 30 years. Do you know that each American owes over $100,000 in national debt? Yes, if you were to um, divide the national debt by by the total of Americans that exist, we all owe $108,000. That to me is crazy. I think that the deficits when I look at the deficit through that perspective, it scares me because most Americans are in debt. Actually, you have a scenario in America wherein people work day to day. They live paycheck to paycheck, and I see this all the time at my job. When you look at us, it's hard to analyze the debt statistics. The best way to look at the debt statistic, in my opinion, is how much debt per person. A simple Google search proves that each American owes $108,000 in debt, and I don't understand how it's going to get paid. You could divide the what we owe over a long period, or claim that we'll grow our way out of it, but I don't think we will. And yes, Trump is going to, you know, well, I mean, Trump won't be alive when when most Americans have to pay off the cost of his big beautiful bill. I mean, he's like in his 70s, but it seems like this big beautiful bill is attaching a lot of debt over the heads of Americans who are in college. I mean, I don't know. I went to college. I went to College of Mount St. Vincent. Now it's the University of Mount St. Vincent. I don't understand how kids there are going to profit off of their degrees, given how high the national debt is. It doesn't seem to me like going to college necessarily means that you're going to make more money than if you didn't go to college these days. Yeah, Joe Biden had to issue debt forgiveness on college loans. I think that proves that most Americans are not making money, off of their college education. Uh, for Trump to attach $3 trillion in extra on top of the other trillions we owe in hopes of growing the manufacturing sector, for me that seems like a silly idea. Um, the tariffs don't seem to be working. I mean, we're collecting a lot of revenue on the tariffs, but we're still importing the same amount of things. Uh, the trade deficit in a recent study did not go down. Um, Americans, the CEO of Ford stated that a lot of young Americans don't want to work for his company. I wouldn't. I have no desire to move to Detroit and work in a factory. Trump is stuck in like the dark ages, I believe, when it comes to manufacturing. He just doesn't understand that the extent to which young Americans uh, don't want to work in a factory, and, and that's where I think he goes wrong on a lot of issues, and I generally don't like him. Recently, he had a phone call with Zelensky. He stated that he was going to keep sending the Russians. He's going to keep sending. He's going to resume sending weapons to the Ukrainians. He's stating that he might even send 7 Patriot missiles. In my opinion, he needs to send like 7,000 Patriot missiles. And 5,800 tanks. Despite the fact that the Russians overestimate their successes on the battlefield, one key reason why the tides of the war have been turning is a refusal of America to send weapons that are desperately needed on the fronts. The war in the war that's raging in mostly in eastern Ukraine around the Donbass region is just as furious as the battles of World War II. For Trump to deny sending any type of weapons that the Ukrainians need makes it so that they lose thousands of soldiers in combat explosions, and for me is appalling. Ronald Reagan would not have had a phone conversation with Putin. There's an iconic photo of Reagan actually meeting a young Putin when he was a child. I find it appalling that the Republicans uh, said nothing, about Trump's appeasement of Putin. It's like the Republican Party, changed their minds on the KGB. More weapons. I just hope that the Europeans are wise enough to, keep sending weapons into Ukraine, because you just can't depend on the Republican Party. Yes, we've had voices in the Republican Party vent fury over Trump not sending the weapons. You saw Mike Pence was very happy that we're going to resume sending weapons into Ukraine. And you saw Ted Cruz argue with Tucker Carlson that it's stupid to let Russia take over Ukraine. And so there's a debate within the Republican Party about this. Another key action that the Trump administration just took was the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities. It seems like the word on the street would suggest that the bombing of the Iranian nuclear facilities was only limited in success. Um, because the facilities are hidden deep under the earth, it's almost impossible to blow them up even with bunker buster bombs. The Iranians probably knew we were coming all along and scuttled the uranium that we were trying to destroy to secret locations that are even farther under the ground than the ones that the Trump administration targeted. Um, the Iranians responded to our unprecedented use of bunker busting bombs by lobbing some bottle rockets at our military bases. They seemed to have expected the attack coming, and it doesn't seem to me like they even cared. Because now that they have an inspiration to pursue a nuclear weapon that exceeded their previous inspiration. I mean, they know that they have to have a nuclear bomb in order to survive. I've heard reports, I think, on the national interest that we've already seen a regime change in Iran. We now have a junta. The people who run Iran now are far more determined than the people in the past. Now, the dictators of Iran are the generals. I've heard rumors that Khamenei doesn't really manage the country to the extent to which he used to. He's like 79 years old. But even more worrisome for the Americans, is the fact that some battle-hardened generals now manage the country, who are highly skilled and more determined than ever to wage war, against America and Israel. Um, but that being said, I supported the attack, against Iran, since the Iranians, you know, used their drones to, destroy thousands of buildings in Ukraine. I think it was time for the Iranian government to receive a taste of their own medicine. I was delighted to see, the Israelis take out their generals during Operation Rising Lion. Yes, and so yeah, and Trump is also he also has to deal with the fact that his ICE raids are very unpopular. Even Joe Rogan was talking about how he uh, was not supportive of the ICE raids. I've heard examples of Americans who were born on military bases getting deported to countries that they've never even been to. I think that that's going to cause a lot of problems for the Trump administration. And in New York City, we have, a socialist that doesn't seem to be very sure of his ethnic identity. He's made multiple claims on applications to colleges that he was Asian, he was an African American. His name is Mendani Zorhan. And Mendani Zorhan wants to make everything free in New York. I mean, he wants to freeze the rents and lower the cost of groceries. I'm sure he wants to raise the minimum wage. Also, to me, it doesn't make sense to have a government-ran grocery store, because who's going to supply it with cheap goods? I mean, if I'm a supplier of fruits and vegetables, I would want to sell my fruits and vegetables to the highest bidder. I wouldn't want to sell it to a New York City owned grocery store that's going to demand that I sell at a loss. Um, Concerning his Mandani's desire to freeze rents, the question I would ask is who would want to be a landlord in New York City if you're going to be forced to lose money renting out properties to people that can't afford to pay a fair price? I've never understood the purpose of rent control. I mean, I understand that people get mad if you can't afford to rent an apartment in New York City. If they're angry that you can't rent an apartment in New York City, then perhaps they should live somewhere else. New York City isn't the only place to live. I certainly can't afford to rent an apartment in New York City. I've heard that even rent stabilized apartments cost like $4 grand a month. There's no job in New York City that's going to pay me, $10,000 a month So I definitely wouldn't live there. I mean, the fact that a stabilized apartment in New York City still goes for like 4 grand a month shows how ridiculous rent control and socialism actually are. And Trump is also unpopular in California. People uh, there, I mean, the actors all hate him, despite the fact that I think one reason why actors hate him is because he wanted to put tariffs on foreign produced movies. Trump believes that movies like Christopher Nolan's upcoming epic, uh, The Odyssey, should be produced in America. I mean, I don't understand the logic of putting tariffs on foreign produced movies because it seems like if you're going to tell the story of Homer's Odyssey, you should film it in Greece. I don't think that you know. I, I do think it is stupid to have tariffs on foreign far movies filmed in foreign locations. I've never liked Trump's tariffs. I don't. One reason why Hollywood is losing its luster is that it's easy to set up green screens outside of Hollywood. In Yonkers, New York, Lionsgate Films just purchased a huge property and they have a lot of green screens. Netflix is setting up green screens in New Jersey. I think that actors in the future will not want to live in Los Angeles. Um, and that I guess is sad. I mean, I always looked at entertainment shows and wanted to live in Hollywood Hills, but I certainly wouldn't live there if since Hollywood is infested with criminality and the houses go up like a tinderbox whenever there's a fire. I mean, I'm curious as to if Trump still plans on implementing a tariff on movies filmed in other locations. Um, Perhaps. I mean, a lot of the movies I enjoy watching, like Halloween and Scream, lend themselves to being filmed in America. I mean, I do like American stories. It seems to me like there is a trend in Hollywood where they're constantly trying to film in these exotic locations. They all want to be like Christopher Nolan and do an international thriller like Natalie Portman's Fountain. Those films to me just are not that appealing. It seems like they try to uh, imitate Christopher Nolan and then they fail. So, what's another Trump controversy? He recently forced a university in Pennsylvania, I think, to revoke Leah Thomas's swimming records. I applaud that. I mean, I respect trans people, but they should not be able to. There should be no scenario wherein a man transitions into becoming a woman and then is able to compete in women's sports and win. I think that uh, that is a travesty. I think it's cheating in sports. I mean, I would be curious to see what happens when a trans male enters the WNBA. Um, would people be outraged by that if this trans male went into the WNBA and beat everybody? I think a lot of people would be. They say that there's going to be a women's professional baseball league in the future. I would be curious as to see how women play baseball. For me, if a trans male entered the women's baseball league and started dominating the diamond, I would say that that's cheating. I would call on the person to be uh, banned from playing baseball because they have an unfair advantage. That's the type of issue that hurts the Democrats. The Democrats basically are also in big trouble. There's a lot of things I don't like about Democratic run cities. For example, whenever you Google gun violence in Chicago, a deep blue stronghold, you see that tragically, like there were 14, examples of gunshots, fired every weekend. Democrats need to learn how to fund the police. Um, During the George Floyd riots, there was a lot of anti-police sentiment generated. I think that the the notion that the streets are over policed is not borne out by facts. Rather, it doesn't seem like there's too many police on the beat. It seems like there's not enough, and the cops need to be se- they need to be encouraged to enforce law and order. There is just look at all of the examples of subway pushers. In New York City. It seems to me like on the subways, you need to have a cop in every car. Defunding the police was a disaster. The Democrats have to uh, own up to the fact that the streets are not over policed. They need to come out and say that places like Baltimore, Los Angeles, Portland are under policed, and there needs to be not twice, but almost like four times as many cops on the beat in blue led cities like Minneapolis, Chicago, uh, Baltimore, Portland, and Los Angeles. A simple Google search would validate that message. All right, so what are the controversies with AI? Yeah, I used AI to generate that image of Donald Trump. I used Grok. Grok lets you generate images of public figures, unlike ChatGPT. I mean, I'm complying with all of YouTube's terms of service because I label it as being AI, after I close the broadcast. But I'm just hoping that YouTube doesn't change their terms of service so that you can't use AI generated images of people. I suspect that they might do that in the future, but that being said, it's kind of like a parody what I do. I mean, I'm not using the image to pretend that someone said something that they didn't say. I use the AI. That's why I like Grok more than ChatGPT. ChatGPT has way too many regulations. It's censored, and I have no use for censorship, but I certainly hope that Grok keeps on allowing me to generate the AI pictures of people, on the cheap. Recently, Disney sued an AI company. I think it was called, I'm not sure what the title of the company is. This company would let you generate AI pictures of Spider-Man. Disney obviously is very protective of their intellectual property. They do not want AI startups allowing people like me to generate fake pictures of Spider-Man. But despite the fact that they sued the company that specifically lets you generate AI pictures of their characters, Grok lets you do the same thing. If you are watching this telecast and you work for Disney's legal team, look at the short I did on my other channel at Drone Thrust. I clearly demonstrated that Grok lets you generate the same AI picture of Spider Man as the other company that Disney is suing. So we need to have a discussion at the federal level about how to regulate AI companies. That's the point I'm making. ChatGPT also used to let you generate images of iconic characters. If you look at another presentation I did, I generated many pictures of like Freddy Krueger, Chucky, and Stephen King's It. It's clear that if Disney wants to sue uh, I, the company that they're suing over the AI, they should also sue ChatGPT and Grok. They could make more money suing ChatGPT and Grok than they could make suing this tiny startup. You know, there's also AI lawsuits going after a music making company, Udio. I used to use Udio to generate AI songs for my YouTube videos on my other channel. I was very surprised at the quality of the AI songs, given how primitive AI music makers are. I was able to make songs that I think were, generally speaking, on par with that of big celebrities like Lady Gaga and even Taylor Swift. But the music labels don't like the fact that these AI companies are training their generators on thousands of hours of music from that the labels own copyright protection on. I believe that the government should allow AI companies to generate, to enter in whatever they want to into their databases in order to generate images. I believe that we need to have a bill passed called the Freedom of AI Act that allows unlimited uploading of copyrighted material into the AI data scrapes for everybody. I think that for copyright holders to sue AI companies will do a lot of damage ultimately to our economy. America has to be the leader in AI. If America doesn't, if America isn't the leader of the AI industry, then that leadership will be passed to countries like Russia, China, Saudi Arabia. It's For AI to work, it is absolutely essential that they train on massive amounts of data. Obviously, if you're a copyright holder, you're not going to want your images training machines that other companies operate for a profit. Getty Images uh, is known for filing a lawsuit against Stable Diffusion. Getty Images is suing Stable Diffusion for like over $1 billion because they're claiming that Stable Diffusion scanned massive amounts of images that Getty owns the copyright on in order to help people like me generate images for my content. Just get over it. I mean, there's demand for AI. Americans need to unite in order to prevent copyright holders from destroying the AI industry. I don't think that AI will eliminate very. I don't believe it will eliminate more jobs than it creates. I I think that the future of work for Americans, however, is changing. Where America is evolving from a society wherein you went to work, producing where you went to work and did the same repetitive labor all day, into an economy where you create your own boutique firm. I mean, that's what I'm trying to do on YouTube. On my two channels, at Drone Thrust and Controversial Quotes, I'm trying to make a lot of money as an influencer. I want to. I think that I could make more money as an influencer than I can at my current job if I just keep at it. I want monetization. That's what Americans are chasing. We're not chasing factory jobs. We want the jobs of the future, not the jobs of the past. Um, yeah, so I do, worry that Trump is stuck in the dark ages. Elon Musk stated in his criticism of the Big Beautiful Bill that Trump is subsidizing the industries of yesterday and jeopardizing the industries of the future. AI is definitely the industry of the future. I believe that Americans are going to become furious at the copyright holders and amend copyright laws so that they're more friendly to AI companies. I definitely think that should happen. And I think it will happen. I mean, there's already a Chinese AI company that has servers in China. I'm sure that that company trains their machines with copyrighted material. Um, yeah, so change the copyright laws. That is my message for today. Thank you for tuning in to this broadcast.